Deepwater Legends is presented by Magic Tail Outfitters. Precision tackle for legendary catch. Meet Captain Mike Abel, the heart behind Haddrell's point tackle. Charleston's premier destination for all things fishing. Established in 1983, Haddrell's has become a low-country staple, offering unmatched expertise, top-quality gear, and good old-fashioned Southern hospitality.
Welcome, Deepwater Legends. Thank you for tuning in. Today, we have a special guest, Captain Mike Abel from Haddrell's Point Tackle, our favorite tackle shop in Charleston, South Carolina. Mike is an expert fisherman, a conservationist, and we're happy to have him on the show. Welcome in, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So first, let's just introduce your shop and what you guys specialize in. I know we're in there pretty frequently, and tell us a little bit about how you guys started, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so my dad is actually the one who started the shop. He started 1983. There was a tackle shop over in West Ashley, but there was nothing in Mount Pleasant. He decided he was going to, after working other jobs in the past, he decided he was going to open up a tackle shop in Mount Pleasant. And so he started the shop where it is today in September of 1983. So I guess this September will be 42 years. But yeah, Dad saw a need, and so he opened up the shop. And the Mount Pleasant store has obviously been here since then. In 2007, he ended up buying two other fishing tackle shops, the Real Johns and Barton and Burwell. We bought both of their inventory, brought a lot of their employees on, and opened up what is the West Ashley store today. That was somewhere in 2007, I believe. And then 2016 is when we opened up the fly shop here next to us in the Mount Pleasant location. So yeah, it's been a busy few years for Dad, but and for us now, I guess.
What kind of products do you carry at Haddrell's or viewers know?
Well, that's the thing is like, we've always tried to offer a little bit of everything, whether it be freshwater stuff. We key in on saltwater, inshore and offshore. With the addition of the fly shop, that really that allowed us to expand in that category. For the longest time, having it all in one location in Mount Pleasant, it was tough. Space is tight as is with what we have now. So, opening up the fly shop really allowed us to further the products that we carry really on both sides. Our fly shop has hunting stuff. We do a lot of duck hunting, turkey. I mean, all your hunting seasons that we have, we do a lot of sporting clays, stuff like that. My dad has gotten into shooting, so we carry a lot of shotguns, a few rifles, carry tons of ammunition. But that really allowed us to expand in that side of things, and then expand here too at the main store. And our, the Mount Pleasant store mostly has inshore stuff, offshore tackle, with a little bit of freshwater stuff. And then, of course, all your clothing and gear to accommodate. And our West Ashley store, they're the same footprint as Mount Pleasant. So it's kind of tough they're kind of in the same spot we were 20 or 10 years ago, where, they're having to have a little bit of everything in there: fly fishing, freshwater, inshore and offshore saltwater stuff. That's where they're kind of a little light on the hunting side. But yeah, man, we're making it. We just such a vast majority of things that you can do here in Charleston. So we're really just trying to carry as much as we can.
Yeah, and we certainly love coming into the shop. You guys seem to have something for everything. I was in there the other day and I seen you. I picked up this new marlin chugger. Marlin season's about to kick off here, as you know, being a marlin fisherman yourself. And you guys have everything from marlin to inshore redfish and trout and everything. The guys there, Jake and all of your other people, are exceptionally knowledgeable about the fisheries, which is rare to find in a lot of tackle shops, is to really ask questions. They're not trying to sell you on just expensive products you don't need. They actually know what works in the area and can lead you in the right way, because we all kind of hate walking into like Bass Pro and you have a person that's probably never been on a boat trying to tell you like, oh yeah, like this is going to be a great DTX for catching inshore redfish. And you're like, like maybe our conversation's over right here. So one of the questions I have, being open since 1983, is what kind of changes have you seen in the tackle business, and like where do you think it's headed from here?
Ooh, that's a tough one and a good one. It's changed a lot. I mean, it really has. Like, there's so many answers to that question. I think first and foremost, I think in years past, a lot of manufacturers were more so utilizing retailers to help sell and promote and market their product in their stores. And so you still have that, but I do think, some of the companies are going more direct to consumer. I've seen that change, and a lot of that has to do with online sales. So I think that's a huge thing that's really changed. Even Amazon, the amount of stuff that you can buy on Amazon. And I think the way that folks, when they order something on Amazon, they get it in 2 days typically, so that's changed a lot. So if it's something that we don't stock or haven't had and we order for somebody, we are doing our best to get it as quickly as possible, knowing that that is a challenge or that is kind of up what we're up against. You certainly don't want to order something that take 2 weeks to get when that individual has given us a chance and they could have ordered it off Amazon or wherever and gotten it quicker. Um, that's been one of the biggest things. And really, the internet's changed a lot of things, that being one of them, but also just the amount of information that you can get online, whether it be good information or bad information, you can get a lot of it just by simple YouTube clicks and looking for, how to tie a Benjamin knot or how to tie a bimini or whatever it is, or what hook to use. Everybody's going to have it. There's a lot of videos, there's a lot of things to watch. And that's not necessarily for the bad. I mean, that can be for the good too. It's promoting education and learning stuff. And really that's what I'm about. Like, I'm all about that 100%. I love to learn. I still learn all the time. So that's one of the big things that it's kind of changed. We've seen more of a direct to consumer, where sometimes that does take some of our business, which is part of life, I guess. But the online sales, that's why I'm just such a huge advocate for trying to buy local, no matter what it is. A prime example was my daughter wanted a purple basketball for Christmas one year. There's not too many purple basketballs at your Dick's Sporting Goods or your local sports shop. So, in that case, yeah, we use it. But other than that, like, I really try and keep it home. You just got to keep it local. And so we really strive to do that. So as far as where it's going in the future, that's a tough one. I mean, I think technology is changing hand over fist. Like, it is. The AI stuff, just everything is pretty wild, and it changes the way we fish. It changes a lot of things, the way we learn. It's a pretty wild. It's almost kind of scary thinking about it.
And we're really big on supporting local tackle shops. Shout out to all you tackle shops everywhere. And for you listeners, it's really important to go in and support these guys. Not only are they supplying the stuff that you need, but in a lot of cases, they're going to the meetings, they're reaching out to the representatives to push for better limits, better seasons for the anglers. They have more skin in the game than the regular individual. And it's a huge benefit to be able to go into a store and then be like, hey, this color's hot, this is what people are using in this area. Yes, maybe people on YouTube are pushing something else. Maybe that works good for them. Maybe they're just pushing it because it's a product they're being paid to push. But a lot of times you go into the tackle shop, you can get a little bit better of a picture of what the local anglers are actually using because they talk to so many people. They know what's selling, they know what's working, and they're able to just kind of give you some insight on that stuff. And it just kind of helps you to be able to go out and have more success. With that being said, I want to tie it back to our sponsor, Magic Tail Outfitters. These guys are outstanding. I believe Mike actually has them in his shop. Dante up there is a slayer of fish. His equipment second to none. Highly recommend it. Back to you, Mike. I know that you guys go out there and pound the marlin. You guys have a beautiful 33-foot regulator. You also are known for inshore fishing, and inshore fishing is not one of my expertises. Tell us a little bit about the local area. I know our area is really well known for redfish, sea trout, sheep's head, and that kind of stuff. Can you give us a little bit of insight for the inshore angler on what the seasons are that are really hot for those, what kind of gear they should be using, and ultimately getting it from Haddrell's because you guys are stocked up
Yeah.
with everything to the max. You guys have more gear than almost any tackle shop I've seen, especially your size and
Yeah.
unmatched in the local area.
I appreciate that very much. Our inshore fishery, I mean, we really, in the seminars that we do, that's one of the things we talk about is like, hey, you can fish inshore year round. Like that's a given. But the really, like, the amount of species that you can target throughout the year is a really impressive thing. Like, where, I mean, in the summertime, let's say I mean, it wouldn't be uncommon to go catch 6, 8, 10 different species in a day. And that's what I really grew up doing. I mean, that's, I was in the boat. I mean, dad had me in the boat in the winter times. We were catching redfish. There were not as many anglers and fishermen around at that time. This was the early 90s. Uh, Dad was one of the first ones to have a flats boat, with a polling platform on it. There was not, there was not many people in town that had a flats boat, didn't really know what it was. What is that bracket on over the motor? Like, what is that for? He was one of the first ones, with a friend of his, Jack Golden. They actually discovered, they were catching redfish at low tide, but they didn't know, was like, where do they go at high tide? And so he was one of the first ones to discover where redfish went at high tide. We have these full moon tides, and they would go in the grass, and that's where you'd catch tail and redfish in the grass. um, but so we've had like a really good fishery. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but so that's kind of where it started. I've been in a boat, my entire life. I mean, I remember him putting me in the hatches in the wintertime when it was so cold just to stay warm. We were catching, we'd go catch redfish, and we'd do that in the wintertime. That's when they'd school up. And you're really gonna, I guess, kind of getting back to like the layout of what a year looks like. Yeah, starting January, February, March, I would still call that the tail end of winter. That is when your redfish are going to be schooled up. When that water temperature gets below 55 degrees, really 60, somewhere between 55 and 60 degrees, those fish will school up. And so it makes it a little easier to target them. Sometimes it's a here over zero kind of thing. If you're going down a bank, you might go down a stretch of bank that's 100 yards long, and you might not catch a single fish for the first 90 yards, but the last 10 yards, there's 400 redfish on that bank. And so that was always a really fun thing to do, sight casting redfish at low tide. That time of year, the water is clear. When the water is that cold, though, the trout fishing is usually tougher. But as we progress in spring, where we are now, where that water's warming up, your trout bite picks up. More guys are sheephead fishing. Your flounder will start to move back in at the inlets as it warms up. And then, like, really starting right now, we're going to start to see bluefish, ladyfish, Spanish mackerel, jack crevalle, tarpon, a lot of your sharks. A lot of those species, those migratory species, are really going to become more available in the coming weeks. Once that water temperature really hits 74, 75 degrees, you'll really start to see a lot more of those species. And that's where, then it kind of progresses us into the summer where you maintain all of that. Red fishing's good. By then, the redfish have split back up. That water's warm. So then you go down a bank and you catch a redfish here, catch a redfish there, catch one, so forth. But it just allows other opportunities, different species, different things to go target. The middle of summer can be kind of tough just because it is so hot. That is where, especially, I'm usually recommending, if folks are going creek fishing, to do it early. And then the minute, you hit that 10, 11 o'clock in the middle of the day in July when you're sweating, that's when you need to go to like deeper water stuff. Go to a 10, 15, 20 foot of water, something deeper. Maybe go target your sharks or tarpon, whatever it may be. And then we really that kind of gets you, then you kind of get back into the fall. Starting September is really when you will see a mullet run. And that's when a lot of guys will target the tarpon and sharks off the beaches. And that can be some of the most exhilarating stuff for tarpon fishing. And then you dive into what I think is your best inshore fisheries: October, November, and depending on temperature, a little bit of December. That's when it's really like a numbers game. It's like, oh, I caught 75 trout yesterday, or in 20 reds. That's when you're catching numbers. That's when you can perfect your artificial lure fishing. Um, it is certainly much cooler. You're in jeans and a light long sleeve t-shirt. And so that's probably my favorite time of the year to fish. And that's, again, it's a numbers game. And so it's just really, really fun. So the inshore fishery has so much to offer, even with as many people as we have fishing as we do now.
So when you're out there inshore fishing, are you using mostly artificial or are you using live bait? Coming from Florida, we'd go out, we'd get greenbacks, a pinfish, grunts, and we'd be using those, and pretty much anything inshore would come around and just whack that. I'm wondering what you use here specifically in the Charleston area.
Live shrimp and live minnows are going to be your predominant bait if you are fishing live bait, and I think that is always going to work. I think there are times when it can hinder fishing a little bit, and a prime example would be using live shrimp in the fall. Every species, including pinfish, whiting, and croaker, when that temperature starts to drop, those species know that, hey, like there's going to be very little bait in the creek. I need to start eating, eating, eating. So live shrimp that to me is probably the worst time to use live shrimp, just because you're dealing with that so much. Now, if you can get it to where you can cast that live shrimp under a popping cork and put it in a redfish's mouth or a trout's mouth like relatively quick, then it usually is game on. But with shrimp, it's you get 3 casts out of it at most. You're either throwing it off, they're just so fragile, they're hard to keep alive. I prefer mud minnows. If I'm gonna use any type of live bait, just you can literally keep it alive so long. You can catch multiple fish on it. And you can cast it as many times as you want. And even in the fall, those little bottom feeders, like your pinfish and stuff, they generally do not mess with them. So that if I'm using live bait, that's what I'm gonna do. But honestly, I like to use a lot of artificials. I don't think there's not a reason why you couldn't. I think it just a lot of it for the anglers that maybe come through the shop. I think they just haven't used it enough to gain enough confidence in it, because you can 100% go catch a redfish, trout, flounder, whatever it may be, on an artificial lure 365 days a year. Like you
Yeah.
really can. It's just a lot of it just has to do with the confidence in it. We
You
see it
have a
with,
go-to lure, a go-to
yeah,
artificial lure that you like. Get this, you're gonna be out there every day and you're gonna be slamming these fish, you know?
it'll change. So it changes the time of year. So like in the spring, when you do not have a lot of bait in the creeks, I'm usually using a smaller, lighter presentation. So that could be like a 2.5-inch salty Ned shrimp made by Z-Man, or doing like a little slim swim. But it is a small profile bait, and I'll use it year round, really. But I think it pays dividends in the beginning of the year when your creek shrimp are very small. You don't have much bait in the creeks. I think that is a huge way to do it. And you're really just you're changing your color based upon your water clarity, and that water clarity is going to change either that day in the tide, or it's going to change over a couple days just based upon the wind. So you got a couple factors. So I would be make sure you have a couple different presentations, a couple different colors, something being a little bit lighter and something being a lot darker. The darker the water, the darker the bait you really need to use. But like if I was maybe to portray to you guys like how a typical day for me would go if I was going inshore fishing, if conditions were somewhat right, meaning not blowing 25 miles an hour, I would 100% start out throwing artificial or doing top water in the morning. Like 100%. That is my favorite way to catch redfish and trout and even flounder in the morning time. So I'm after the time change, I'll probably be at the boat landing at 5:15, moving to my spot, fish top water until the sun starts to come up around 7:30. You kind of, if you're catching fish, you'll notice it kind of die off as the sun comes up. Once the sun comes up, then you're really switching baits, something subsurface, or if you want to go to live bait, artificial shrimp under a cork. That's always one of the things that I recommend to folks that want to improve their artificial game is start out with a float, 3 feet a leader, and a Voodoo, DOA, or Z-Man artificial shrimp under a float, and pop it along a grass edge. That is the easiest way to build confidence and catch fish. And then from there, they can take it from there and try other things. But yeah, that's usually my game plan is I love a topwater bite. I would 100% rather catch 10 fish on that than 50 on bait. It's just so much fun.
So, being an expert fly fisherman, how often are you doing it? What kind of conditions are you looking for where you're like, hey, this is a day the fly rod's coming out versus anything else? And do you prefer that over traditional methods of fishing?
Like I think some things have just gotten in the way of time a little bit, being whether it be work, kids, whatever, stuff like that. So I haven't put a focus on it as of late. I love it though. I mean, it really is a lot of fun. I mean, to me, if I'm going to go throw the fly, a lot of folks like doing it. The whole point to a lot of guys are doing it with sight fishing. So I think you'll see a lot of folks doing it late fall, basically October. Through February when that water is clear. That's when you're really looking for a low tide in the middle of the day. So you have enough sunlight so you can see them. Those fish are normally schooled up. That to me is one of the better ways to catch them on the fly. And then, talking about doing the tailing redfish in the grass, that is another very presentable way to catch redfish on the fly. But honestly, I mean, I think the some folks that are getting into fly fishing, or people even just that have questions about it, think that you can only do select things with a fly rod, and that you can do with a spinning rod that you can't do with a fly rod, and that's just totally couldn't be further from the truth. Everything that you catch on spinning gear or bait casting gear, you can catch with a fly rod, like 100%. Like, you look even the last, let's say, 10 years, tarpon fishing here in South Carolina has really changed a lot, and guys are catching them on fly rod. Guys are catching them on artificial. I mean, when I was growing up, we were just doing it with nothing but bait. And you look how that's changed. I mean, that's changed a lot. There's guys doing it more so with artificial lures and fly and being successful. So the fly, man, you can do anything you want with the fly. You can catch anything you want. I treat it just, the only thing that makes it harder, the couple things that make it harder is the obvious wind conditions. You want something to be a little bit lighter just to make it a little bit easier to cast. That can probably be the most frustrating thing. And then just maybe something as simple as line management. If you're doing it from a boat, or even if you're walking, just at times, you can have just your fly line just strung all over the deck, getting wrapped around something incidentally, or whatever it is. Like, those can be some of the frustrating things. But man, I think it's so rewarding. I mean, I think it really is. It makes it that much better. It's almost like catching fish on top water with a spinning rod. I mean, it's just that rewarding, if not more. And not to mention, like, the guys that are tying their flies, they're making their own lure to really go present to a fish and trick a fish into eating it, making a good 70-foot cast, presenting a fly that they tied, and then hooking and catching that fish. That's full circle right there.
Absolutely. And just to change it up a little bit, spring is here. And for us, that means the mahi run is upon us. We're starting to see them trickle in. People are starting to catch them. How soon are you heading out? I know you guys were planning on going out today. We were like, oh, we're not sure if we're going to be able to fit this in. The wind and conditions offshore were not looking good today. Otherwise, we'd probably be out there too. Um, what are some of your go-to methods? I know you're no stranger out there to the Edisto Banks and Georgetown Hole and all the places that we frequent as well. What are some of your tips for success for these guys that are getting the boat geared up, getting their oil changes and ready to hit the water now that the conditions are starting to smooth out and guys with a little bit smaller boats are able to really put in some miles and get out there and get these fish?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the biggest things is just being prepared. So hopefully those guys that were doing those oil changes and all that maintenance, hopefully they're on the cusp of, like, the word ready, and they are sitting on go. Like, I'm sitting on go right now. Like, those fish are starting to show up, and I think, it's time. I mean, they're starting to catch them. I think we give it another week or 2 weeks, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that they're really fired up. For you guys are catching wahoo and catching tuna right now. There was some big wahoo weight in that SC Wahoo series. There's some, that 99 pounder. I mean, that was a stud fish. But really, like, being on go and being prepared right now is the biggest thing. Just so when you do have that weather window, you can go. Because I think it's really set to happen any day, really, for it to fire off. As far as, like, techniques go, or tips for them, I mean, it kind of depends on the angler a little bit, and maybe more so what they want to target. If your day or your agenda is to really go catch meat, put meat in the box, then I would say a majority of your stuff is probably going to be trolling, 160 feet to maybe 200, 250 feet. It's really sticking to the ledge. That would offer you a good opportunity to catch your wahoo, your tuna, and your dolphin, and hopefully hopefully come across a good weed line or some type of floating structure. Um, that will hold some dolphin there. And that was kind of the big key component last year. I think there were some big grass mats last year, not as many as years past, but those would hold some fish. But I think a lot of your structure, your just floating debris, that's where we caught a lot of our mahi on. I mean, actually, a buddy found it, called me on the radio and said, hey, there's some Maui's under a tree if you want to come over here and catch them. And we caught some on the fly rod that day, actually. That was really cool. One of the employees, Bo, he decided to bring it that morning, kind of unannounced, which is fine. And honestly, we caught more on that than we did trolling ballyhoo down that tree line. So that was pretty wild, and that was pretty fun. That was my first mahi on the fly rod. But kind of getting back to techniques and stuff, like your ballyhoo's generally going to be your best bet. If you're trolling on the ledge, though, sticking with having a cedar plug. I mean, a cedar plug is a must. Putting a DTX out and the rest of it ballyhoo. I think that's probably a very generic spread, and that's a good meat fish spread, if you will. You still have a chance of catching, your billfish at times, and I think that's a good way to approach it. Now, like me personally, I am not in it so much for the meat. I'm in it for the billfish. Like I want to go catch blue marlin. I want to go catch sailfish. That is what I am completely mad at right now. Like that's all I live for. And so typically going a little bit further, the shallowest I usually start is probably 250 feet. And I am circle hook fishing with small ballyhoo. Some I'll put little chuggers on my long riggers. But I only troll 4 rods, 2 longs and 2 flatlines. But then I troll 2 teasers, basically squid chains, one off each outrigger, and then I troll 2 tandem dredges off dredge booms with electric reels, and we have 250 pitch class rods ready if a blue marlin does come up on the teaser or on the dredge. We grab that 50, get the dredge or the teaser or both out of the way, and pitch with a 50 ideally. That's just one of the old bait and switch. Basically, that is one of the cool. It's like topwater fishing for me. I mean, it's visual. It takes a team to do it, making the right moves, and so that's one of my favorite things right now. I've been eating alive with that the last few years.
It's the same with us. Like 90% of the time, we're heading way deep. Like we're not even dropping lines at the ledge. We're going out to the Charleston lump. We're going out to Georgetown hole. We're just throwing it in, giving it our all. We'd rather catch one really big one than 50 small ones. And it's just a game of like whether you get them or not. Sometimes they're coming back empty. Sometimes they're coming back heroes, but it's just the name of the game. Either way, we're not coming back with a box full of 15 pounders. With that said, I know that you guys have some sales coming up, some events. You guys do regular seminars on catching these fish. You want to give us some updates on what exciting stuff Haddrell's has coming up here soon for anglers to really get involved and
Yeah.
sharpen their spear?
Yeah. Well, that's the next thing that we have coming up is Monday, April 21st, and that's going to be on bottom fishing. And so we have Captains Mark Phelps and Jake Harmon from our West Ashley store. Those 2 guys are going to do a seminar on bottom fishing. And, Jake loves to bottom fish. He is eating alive with it. And I
And
think it's
he's excellent at it. We're actually gonna have him on the show later on in the season, and, we're really excited about it. I know he's just a hammer out there for vertical jigging, bottom fishing, everything to do with that, and just an excellent guy, and being able to go into the store and get some of his insight and being like, "Hey, like, this jig is great, but, like, this is the one that you want," is something that you just can't get online a lot of times. Like, sure, you might be able to reach, like, a help button or something, but they're not really as familiar with, like, exactly where I'm going, and a lot of times you reach out to these guys in your local tackle shops regardless of where you're located, and you might have a game plan and be like, "The SST charts are telling me to go here. This is where the ledges are. These are where the reefs are." But they might be like, "Hey, like, that's a great plan, but, like, I was out yesterday or my customer was out yesterday. They were over in this general area, and they just killed it." And by using that information to kind of adapt your game plan really is beneficial. And over the years, I mean, I've had countless individuals help me with just like little pieces here and there, whether it's a color of a lure or style of a lure or something different that really makes it a huge game changer when we're out there on the water. We find new grounds, we find new water, we find the bait, and it's like, holy smokes, like this is something that I didn't pick up, whether it was due to cloud cover or something when the SSTs came over. And
Yeah.
it's just really can be a game changer, and one of the reasons that, like, you guys have to go to your tackle shops and talk to these guys. They don't just work at tackle shops, they live the life. Like, they're not doing this for fun, they do it because they love it, it's part of them, and they wanna talk about it. So don't hesitate to ask them questions, ask them technique stuff. I've never met someone that worked at a tackle shop that wasn't happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, I mean, we are very fortunate to have the staff that we do, and I think, one of the thing that drives them is the passion that they have for that. You look at Jake, for example, and he's passionate about fishing to begin with. Like, in general. But when you bring up talking about bottom fishing and jigging and stuff, that's where his expertise is. He loves that. I've learned a lot from him. And we are very lucky to have folks like that, that special, they may have some type of specialty. It's not that every single employee that I have, knows everything about the fishing industry, but by and large, like, we've got an employee that has a specialty maybe in fresh water, but loves to do saltwater stuff. And so, when we're a well-rounded group basically. And so, very fortunate to have that. And that's where it comes in. And that's where, Jake has been wanting to do a seminar. And so we put this together. This will be his second time doing it. He just helped me with the offshore trolling seminar that we had a couple weeks ago. But we do. So the seminar is Monday, April 21st. It's going to be at our Mount Pleasant location. It's at 6 o'clock. It's free. We just ask that you call and sign up just to RSVP so we can put enough chairs out. But yeah, I mean, it's, that is one of the ways that we love, like, reaching out to the community, man. It just is teaching what we know. And we don't do it. This isn't just like a sales technique. This is like, we want to help the folks, pick up a tip or better their bottom fishing in this particular seminar. And we've got two great guys doing it. Mark Phelps has been a local charter captain for probably 20, moved to Florida, has some experience there as well, and came back. But he's an excellent guide. He's been doing it a long time, and the thing I like about him is, I don't know if analytical is the right word, but he's very precise and very, he pays attention to the details, and he really looks at how things work. And so he is another great resource for information. And, like, getting back to what you're saying, like, firsthand knowledge cannot be beaten. Firsthand knowledge outweighs everything. Like, you can look at their sea surface temp, like you said. You can say, hey, this guy caught redfish on this plug 2 weeks ago. But the individual that was out there the day before catching them on this, like, nothing can beat that. Nothing will beat that. So that's why, it's a good thing. Everybody that we have, they fish and they're passionate about fishing. And so when they're not working, they're going.
Do you guys do anything for the kids? Any seminars to teach kids and get the youth involved into the fishing community? Because that's always a wonderful thing, man, is getting the kids involved, teaching them the rigging, any setups, anything.
Yeah, we have over the years, and we've actually used some of the kids, not necessarily that worked here, but some of the guys that would come through the shop and, kind of pick out some of the ones that I felt like would be maybe a better teacher. So then that way it was coming from someone closer to their age. But yes, we've done that in the past. We did the fishing expo in January. And that's where we typically utilize the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. They did some a seminar on kids fishing and really showing them how to tie knots and things like that. And then we've done some after school programs, where little Timmy gets out of school at 4:30 and runs down to the dock. His mom and dad bring him down the dock, and we fish, for an hour and a half at Tuesday afternoons, and that was always fun. And we've had some good stories from that stuff. Just, we had two guys from the shop, running that class, that course, if you will. And our first class, we thought, like, oh, we're going to, have these kids sit down for 20 minutes. We're going to teach them about conservation and all this. And Mr. Allen and Bo that work here, they did the classes. And at one point, one of the kids said, "Excuse me, sir, when are you going to be done talking so we can go fishing?" So
I like his style.
we quickly learned that after a 10-year-old's been in school all day, he really probably doesn't want to come learn, sit down. He wants to go fishing. So as they ended up fishing, we would kind of mentor them and teach them. And as we catch fish, just kind of show them how to release it and how to unhook it properly and things like that. But that was a pretty good, man. Those kids were just ready to get out of class and go fishing. So that's pretty exciting.
It's awesome. And after these seminars, the great thing is that people can gear up. And I know you guys have a big sale coming up
Yeah.
shortly after the seminar. If you want to plug that and let us know a little bit about what's going on there. I know we're always looking to gear up with more gear. You can never have enough. I mean, my wife thinks that I have enough. Hate to tell her, but it's going to be much more. It grows every year.
It happens. That's why a lot of guys pay in cash, and that's I'll give out all those tips.
Do you guys do the different receipt program?
He only paid $200 for this. That's it. Well, like one of the pro tips is like you leave the house with a rod or two and come back with three or four, and it's not very well noticed when you come back with four instead of the two you left with.
That is a pro tip. I like it, and I will be doing that.
But no, so we've got a seminar, or excuse me, a spring sale. That's going to be April 25th, 26th, 27th. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So just under 2 weeks away. Looking forward to it. I mean, the idea behind it is guys can gear up, guys and girls can gear up. We're doing some clothing on sale. I think we've got the clothing at 25% off. We've got all tackle boxes and bags at 15% off. We just started carrying a new uh, roto molded cooler, just like your Yetis and stuff, but not the same price. We've got a 25 quart cooler in that's going to be 20% off. We are doing a mahi trolling outfit, a TLD 25 with a billfisher rod. That's going to be, I think, just under $300, and we're spooling it with free line. And then what else do we have? We're doing half off Berkeley Pro Spec Mono spooled on your reel. So whether you bring us one or buy one that weekend, we'll spool it at half off. And then we're going to I tell you, like, we don't have it advertised, but in the coming weeks on our social media, I think we're going to release it. We're going to have a lot of other really good in-store specials to accommodate with what's going to be in the ads. I'm probably doing some battle combos on sale. What else were we talking about? We got a lot of tools in the shop, pliers, braided scissors, things like that. So we're going to do some pretty steep discounts in store. So really, they're going to have to watch the Facebook page or come to the shop to check it out. But that's going to be at all locations that Friday, Saturday, Sunday for our normal business hours.
The sale is awesome. I think it's also important to mention, like, from me personal and my observation of your store is there's not really lots of markup or anything. Everything seems on point with everywhere else. And in addition to that, you guys are very close to the boat ramps. I know your West Ashley location's right there near Wapoo Cut. Your Mount Pleasant location's right near Shem Creek. It's so convenient. Just swing in there, whether you have the boat or don't, depending on the boat,
Yeah.
and really get the stuff that you need, that maybe you forgot at home or that you need for the next day. And you guys have such a wide variety of stuff. I mean, your hook wall alone in the West Ashley store, like, I don't think if it's not on the wall, it's either not made or you don't need it. Like, you guys have everything from like the swordfish gear all the way to the smallest fish you could imagine hooking. And I literally, every time I walk into your store, I leave with way more than what I need. And it's just because it's like, wow, I didn't even know that this was out yet or that this was available. You guys really have everything in every color. Your bait selection's great. You guys are importing baits like swordfish baits and stuff to have there. And it's really saving a lot of time to not have to rig up swordfish baits and then realizing you have a spinner or something like that. You guys are always stocked up on ballyhoo. Your live bait selection's great. You guys usually have fiddler crabs and everything. And pretty much anytime I go into the store, it's like, wow, like now my fishing day needs to be replanned because I suddenly have all this gear for something I wasn't planning on going for in the first place. Like now, instead of trolling for mahi, I'm going to be pitching mud minnows at them under grass.
Well, some guys have done that, like in the latter part of the year when they are sometimes hard to get them to eat anything, they'll do that, instead of chunking squid and stuff, they'll take mud minnows or little baby menhaden and stuff and do that. But you're right, and I
So
appreciate it.
up north, our fishery's a little different. I fish a lot out of New Jersey in the canyons, specifically for like tuna and marlin and stuff. And that's one of the day savers, the mahi. They just congregate around the crab pots, and rather than trolling for them, we always just pitch to them. And I know when I'm fishing with guys out here, they always think it's weird. They're like, "Why are you busting out the spin gear?" It's like, because we're gonna pitch at this grass flat. Just get a whole bunch of them quick. We don't need to pull and waste a bunch of line and trolling gear and get grass tied up in our spreader bars and daisy chains and stuff like that. We could just make
Yeah.
quick work of them, toss out the Stella and just put the heat on them.
That's where I need to get a little better about that. I usually do not bring like a little spinning rod or a pitch rod. And there have been many a days where we pull up, and what would be a day saver, like we're just kind of pitching our talicas and not very gracefully, but, pitching a ballyhoo back there and letting it sink and catching them that way. But I should probably start bringing some spinning rods. That might save the day a little better.
Yeah, we always have pitch rods ready. We have vertical jigs ready for any kind of action we come down to because you see like a wahoo tailing or anything. Like, I mean, even a swordfish sunning in the morning. You got to be ready for it. And the last thing you want to do is see that fish of a lifetime and not have a rod rigged up. I know one of the things that has been very beneficial to us is about 20 miles out from our spot, we rig all the trolling rods up and have them all hooked up to the lures and have all the baits ready to rock and roll. And that way, we come across fish that are 10 miles shy. We're able to just dump them right in the water and get them going. Now I know one of the things people in the South haven't really adapted to as widespread as up north is spreader bars. Wide trackers and spreader bars, whether from chatter lures or from Sterling, have been incredibly successful for us. Probably 50% of our fish are landed on wide trackers of some sort.
Right.
Is that something you've personally adapted to yet, or have you tried anything like that specifically? I can tell you, coming from fishing a lot of center consoles and even big boats, it is wildly successful. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't leave the house without at least a couple pairs of those spreader bars in, just because, like, they just land so many fish. Yeah, it can be a pain in the butt when you get a billfish on one because it's like, oh, we're not going to get it 'cause it's going to throw it. But as long as you can get it in and get a pitch bait out to them, it makes easy work of it. But as far as like wahoo, mahi-mahi, blackfin tuna, love them, bonitas, if you're fishing for shark baits, all of that stuff just takes them. And I mean, we get so many bites. Like you might be trolling through a dead area and pick up your speed a little bit to get somewhere else. And just that change of speed entices bites almost every time.
Yeah. I haven't, I pulled a couple spreader bars over the years, and I just pulled one on my way back, and that was the first few years I started fishing, like after I'd gotten my boat. And it was bonita city for me. It was just bonita after bonita, and then they were getting sharked at the same time. And honestly, like I'm just so eaten alive with bill fishing that like my typical spread, no matter like if I'm bill fishing and I'm out deeper, it's four dink baits and two pitch rods, and that's pretty much it. Now, if I know that I'm gonna try and do like what I would say like a little combo deal, if I'm fishing in shallower, I'll pull a DTX, a cedar plug on the way back, and then put my naked ballyhoo, my dink baits everywhere else. But yeah, I mean I'm pretty like keyed in on just doing nothing but bill fishing predominantly. But the thing is, I'm still catching mahi and catching tunas and catching wahoo still on that same naked ballyhoo with a 7/0 circle hook and 80-pound fluoro. Like you'd be surprised how many wahoo you still catch that way. Don't get me wrong, you'll get whacked off a couple times, but we've been fortunate, I guess. We still caught a lot of wahoo with a circle hook and an 80-pound fluoro. So that's predominantly the way I fish. Like I'm telling you, I'm so mad at bill fishing. It's not funny.
Now I'm going to go out on a limb here and ask for some secret sauce. What's your go-to color for the squid chugger heads on your pitch baits?
It's usually pink, and I don't think on the pitch stuff. I don't think it. Like, I don't know that the color really matters. I mean, I'm sure it does, but um, I think a lot of guys, or at least what I've learned from some of the other folks, is they're typically using a pink or a brighter color. So when you do pitch it, you can actually kind of see where it is in relation to the fish. And so that's why I've always used pink or something that's a little brighter or easier to see. But like on my, like sometimes on my long riggers, when I'm trolling dink baits, small ballyhoo, I will put little chuggers on it, little molecraft. They call them hoo hooker heads, and I will troll those. And that, yeah, there you go. I've got,
Yeah, these are some from Magic Shell Outfitters.
yeah,
They're little cup heads, rubber squids. They're super soft, and they're actually pre-cut to fit over your ringer swivel.
yeah,
They make them in a bunch of colors. We've had a lot of luck with pink and green. This blue and pink is really a successful color as well. I'll drop some off the shop for you this week. You can
yeah.
try
I'd
them
love
out,
to
but
try them.
they work really well for us. They're super soft and stretchy, and they really swim the baits well. I know there's a million companies that make different versions of them.
Yeah,
Senseless plug for
but
Magic Tail. We get them, so
no,
we love them. And,
well,
those guys just they're out there so much, just tearing it up in the tournament series and MJs, and, the nice thing about Dante being with them is that they're able to make adjustments to the baits that they have,
yeah,
and they sell the exact baits that they fish with. So if you wanna fish with the stuff that these guys are out here winning these huge tournaments with, like, there's no better option than with the guy who's making the stuff for himself. Because if he goes out and sees something, he's like, "Oh, I wish it would do this." He's making that adjustment, getting an
yeah,
order of it, and then he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna start selling this stuff." But, There's tons of companies that make the squid heads, and they all work great. I know his are really convenient because you don't have to cut that middle hole larger to fit over a ring or swivel, and just super easy to just pop right on.
Yeah, it's probably just easier to pull through too. But yeah, I mean, I'll pull, like greens. I love like, purple, all black, solid blue. I'm usually pulling those on the longs. And that's really just it's in different sea conditions. That bait might be skipping too much or whatever it may be. And so like I'll put one with a chugger and I think it just trolls a little better from my long. So, but yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to
So are
going.
you guys doing any tournaments this year?
I'll look at doing some of the tournaments that have center console divisions. I think the HMY Low Country Cup, I want to say they just introduced the center console division, and then the Carolina Billfish Classic. I know they've had one for a couple years, and so I typically wait and see what the weather looks like, and weather permitting, I would probably do it. They've kind of grown a little following. I think they had 8 to 10, 12 boats in it the last time I went to fish it. And so yeah, I'd like to see if we could get a little center console bill fishery going. We ended up last year, it was last year or the year before, we pre-fished the Monday. We had our group together. We were going to fish the tournament. If the weather was nice, we fished like the Monday before and caught a blue. And then the weather went bad. So we're like, we're just not going to fish it. I mean, guys in like 65 footers were complaining they were doing 25 knots. It was just rough. So we didn't go. We bailed out. And then the Sunday after the tournament, had a day where we caught like 3 out of 4 sales. And so, like, had we just been able to put some of that together on tournament days with better weather, it would have been kind of nice. But, it kind of got me a little itch to go do it and be competitive. It's pretty fun. But I think it really takes a core group, a good group of guys that everybody knows what to do. And so to just be
Yeah,
kind of fun in that.
weather's always one of the toughest parts on when you're competing against larger boats, but now with the availability of sonar like OmniScan and stuff, it kind of changes the game even more. These guys are able to scan such large area, and yeah, it can't make the fish bite, but they can tell where the fish are, and that's half the battle.
It is, and that's where, I haven't really wanted to get into a tournament where I'd basically be competing with those guys. And I think that would make matters extremely tough. So just getting into like the center console side of it, I think would be fun for me. I realize I'm the small guy in that market, and I'm okay with that. I've had some successful days, and I mean, really, the big thing about it is just going fishing. It's fishing at the end of the day. It's supposed to be fun and enjoyable, and just doing it with with my friend, and that's what I like to do.
And now, one of the things being a tackle shop in the area, you guys probably deal with tons of charters in the area. I'll give you a minute to talk about some of the ones that support you to support them back. A lot of our listeners are from all over the world and coming to Charleston as a vacation destination. They're interested in finding a charter to go out and fish with. And give you an option to mention some of those guys and really give
Yeah.
back to them for all the support that you get from them.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do. Like, there is a huge list. I mean, there at least the on the offshore side, there's not has not been as much, but you've got your Chase Edgren with Last Cast, Triple Net Charters. He's been doing a lot of walk on stuff. He's a really good buddy, just an excellent guy, and just fun to be around. Even if the fishing were slow for whatever reason, excellent, excellent guy. Highly
I'm sad
recommend
to see
doing.
him move. And
What's that?
thank you,
Yeah.
Chase, for connecting us. And I'm sad to see him move out of the area. Hopefully, he's coming back often, and we get to see him more often. I really
Yeah.
enjoy having him on the show and knowing him as a guy and a friend. And excellent guy.
Yeah, I mean, he is, and it is like it hurts to know that he's leaving in a few months, but like the good thing I think is the plan is for them to come back, and I know he'll come back and visit, and we'll probably plan a trip somewhere together and go fishing, meet up somewhere, and I'm sure if Lance takes a boat somewhere, we'll hopefully meet up and go fishing. So it ain't like it's over, but I just won't be seeing my buddy like every single day. But yeah, he's a really great charter captain. You've got others like Ren Fogel. He's been doing it a long time. You've got Johnson McCurry running some center consoles. That is a majority, I think. There haven't been a ton of guys running offshore trips, not like it used to be in the early 2000s where you had Charter Row down at Charleston Harbor Marina, and where you go down and go down a dock and there'd be 30 boats and you could pick the charter company that you wanted to use. It's just not like that anymore. But we do have a lot of inshore guys, and really probably too many to name, but your Mark Phelps and your Shane Sinclairs and your Peter Browns and Jamie Huff and Johnny Chrislip, Chris Wilson. I mean, you really do have so many guys, Jim Hudson, Legree Leland, Mike Illig. I mean, there is just a ton of great guys that come to the shop, and they're really great people and they're great anglers. And so, we appreciate their business over the years. We're actually doing a big thing with them tomorrow night. We're having a little guide night at the shop just to kind of allow them to be kind of like their sale, where they can come to get all their tackle and stuff that they need at an extra discount. And, we're serving them wings and cold beer, and we're serving them home team is what I was trying to say. So we're having food and we're just going to have a good time. We've invited them all to come. It's a little private deal right as we close tomorrow night. And so I hope a lot of them will take advantage of it, but it's definitely a good group to work with. And there's a lot of them. And I really say, like, call the shop. It would probably be the best thing to do. And if you're looking for a trip, call the shop or look one of those guys up, but call the shop and say, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to fly fish, or I have 4, kids under the age of 10. I want to take them fishing, and we can really push you their direction as to who would be best for that fly fishing, near shore, offshore, whatever it may be. We see these guys day in and day out and kind of really know what they specialize in. And so that gives us a good opportunity to be able to send them a certain direction to the best individual we see fit for that.
And as the show grows, we hope to cover many more fisheries and hope to have some of those guys on the show to talk about what they do best and kind of help our listeners find out, like, hey, how can I improve my game? Because this is all about them. How people that maybe don't get the opportunity to fish as much as myself and you, and how they can really make the most of their valued time out there on the water. And one of the ways is by going to your shop, talking to the guys there, finding out what to do, but then also getting a big picture by, hey, I can listen to this guy that does this as a job, and he can give recommendations on like exactly the way that he found useful, because then you can eliminate all the other ways. Because on the internet, there's just so much information. And when one person's telling you to tie like an Albright knot, another person's telling you to tie uni to uni, and really just finding out like, what are these guys doing? Why are they doing it? And how is it improving their game? And you can kind of get a bigger picture. And between that and talking to people and then going out and practicing this stuff, you can really improve your game significantly with the limited time that you have.
Yeah. Well, you're always, that's the thing about fishing and working in the fishing community, and in the tackle shop, is like you're always learning. And when you go with somebody else, you always pick up something, whether you know it or not at the time. Like you always learn something. But you're right, there can be a lot of noise out there, and it can be hard to decipher what. It's not necessarily whether it's right or wrong, but maybe what's right for you or what's best for you, or maybe you like tying that specific knot and you can tie it easier and you stick with it. And that's the way, that's the kind of the way to do it. There is going to be 100 different ways to skin the cat, and it's just finding the way that suits your needs best.
So, Mike, I know you're real big in the fishing industry. I heard you're into conservation of our fisheries, and I'm wondering what you guys do as your part in helping push that topic to other people.
Yeah. Well, so I serve on the state board for Coastal Conservation Association, CCA, and we have for a long time. We sponsor, or we're big sponsors of the organization on a yearly basis. We, attend, of course I attend all the meetings and things like that, but really, I mean, it's just trying to be good, showing firsthand like good stewardship, like and conservation. But I think the big thing is just being a part of it and doing it, and showing people how to do it, showing how to people to better handle a fish. I was at a DNR meeting the other night, and part of it, we're talking about the redfish stock. Part of it is talking about these breeding fish that guys are catching at the grillage and and deeper water stuff. And it's really about how to handle them. I mean, conservation obviously going to come in several forms, but as far as an organization that we support the most, it's CCA. They are the ones that are on the forefront. Really, you really don't have a ton of other organizations that are standing up as directly in South Carolina as we do CCA South Carolina. They are CCA started a topwater action campaign program in 2009, I think. And to date, I think they've recycled 87,000 bushels of oysters. And so, as you may know, like the oysters are a filter of the water. So it's in essence cleaning the water and providing habitat. And so that is a tremendous way, one of the ways that they support it. But they're also, obviously, the DNR is the science behind all of it. So CCA typically backs a lot what not always, but typically backs what the DNR is promoting. So we're in turn providing things for DNR, whether it be a dump truck that they need for these oysters, or maybe, when we first started, we called them barges, but they were in essence 20-foot John boats that we would take said recycled oysters, put them on, tow them to the spot that we were going to recycle and replant those oysters. And so that's one of the ways that CCA is doing it, but they've done a lot of artificial reefs. I'm not good with numbers on it, but I want to say, let's call it 24, probably more, but they have sunk several artificial reefs just off the coast. And a lot of those are close enough to where somebody in a smaller boat could go get to it. A lot of them are within 10 miles of the beach, let's say, typically 30 to 60 feet of water, let's say, kind of in that range. And it's anywhere from actual barges, to tugboats. They're creating artificial reefs and habitats to better our fishery, and they're going to legislature and helping with different laws, as far as things come up, the flounder limits and what the redfish looks like. And so I encourage everybody to do that. My dad is really where, I followed a lot of footsteps from my dad, from the tackle shop to the way he is as a man, and some of the organizations that he supported, have continued on through me, or I believe in supporting them. And that's really where we've continued to do that. So I really encourage folks to look at CCA South Carolina. We've actually got a banquet coming up May 15th at the Omar Shrine Temple. That's a great way to become a member, kind of get in the know. And if you want to become a volunteer, the fishery, we've just got to have it in a sustainable manner. I want my grandkids and their kids and so forth to be able to go catch a redfish or go catch trout, whatever it may be. And I think this is one of the ways of kind of giving back to the community, promoting a healthy fishery. You look at the bill fishing offshore as a good example. I think that's a lot of the offshore guys that have been trolling for several years, since the 80s, let's say. There were not many days where you were catching 2 blue marlin in a day and 4 sailfish. Matter of fact, I saw one guy post the other day that if they caught 10 blue marlin the entire year, that was a good thing. Well, nowadays, guys are doing that probably almost in a week. Some guys are catching 2 or 3 a day, if not more. And so I think that leads to a lot. That has led from conservation efforts, circle hook fishing, and not killing them like they used to back in the 80s. Conservation works, but it works because they need a bigger body in the organization to be able to go to legislature and say, hey, we need this fixed. Hey, we've got 30,000 members in CCA that all believe in this effort. Can you help do something? So it's a great organization. You really get involved, become a member. Certainly if anybody has questions about it, come see me. I'll be happy to help and answer as many as I can. But the banquet, May 15th, Omar Shrine Temple, so at 6:00. That is a great way to just get your feet in the door. It's a fun banquet, man. It's silent, live auctions, tons of good stuff. So you can't beat it. You got to come check it out.
Sounds great. And before we wrap this up, do you just want to shout out your shop, phone numbers, how they can get a hold of you, website, and so forth? Like I said, you guys are an excellent shop. You literally have everything someone could need to fish here or anywhere else. Everything from marlin and tuna, mahi, all the inshore stuff. You guys have freshwater stuff, fly fishing stuff. Highly suggest if you're in the area, reach out to these guys. If you're not in the area, still reach out to these guys. These guys are great. Their hospitality is unmatched. Like you said, where you guys are holding the dinner for the guides and a special sale, like I'd put that up against any website trying to do something like that. Like that's exactly why it's so important and critical. And you guys are such a critical part of the community to make sure that we're supporting, because you guys are real people, you're real fishermen, you're passionate about what you do, helpful, and conservation minded. It's super important. I know a lot of people like the idea of conservation, but they don't put the time or effort into it. And then it's important to realize that, like, you guys do. You're going to meetings, you're sitting on boards, you're going out there and really advocating for the fishermen and to make sure that this fishery is sustainable for the future anglers and to keep the sport alive. Because just like with hunting, less and less people do it every year, although sometimes it doesn't seem that way. When you're out there and you're like, "Oh, there's 100 boats." But overall, less people are doing it now than ever. And it's important to really protect our rights as anglers and to protect the fishery to make sure it sticks around and leave the availability to go fish in 50 years, 100 years, and so forth.
Yeah, well, I 100% agree with that. And I think, maybe one of the misconceptions with the conservation stuff is like some people take that as like, hey, they're wanting to close it down. They're wanting to shut this down, which, is not the case at all. It is really just to be a sustainable thing. And that's not, CCA is not an organization that wants to shut everything down. That is by far probably one of the biggest myths about it. It's unfortunate you have stuff that wasn't necessarily CCA related, but like your red snapper closure and things like that. That's all different organization.
Mako sharks.
Yeah. So, just get involved and check it out. But yeah, back to the shop. I mean, I just encourage everybody to come check us out. Our website unfortunately does not reflect what we have in inventory and what we stock. We pretty much utilizing that as an education platform, and that's what we've really done. Is just not being able to compete as well at the time, like on our online sales and stuff with product. We just put our Haddrell's branded stuff on it and information. Lots of videos that you can watch when you're sitting at home, how to tie a knot, how to work a topwater lure, whatever it may be. But certainly they can call. I'm working with a guy right now in St. Croix. He called the other day looking for some tackle. And so, I'm just taking an order over the phone and we're just going to ship it to them. So I encourage everybody to come check out the shop. I'm very proud of our staff. We have a great staff and they're very passionate about fishing. So between all of us, somebody is going to be able to help you, whether it's brim fishing or blue marlin fishing, somebody's going to be able to help you. So if you want to watch some videos, some instructional videos, our website is haddrellspoint.com. We have the Mount Pleasant location, which is 885 Ben Sawyer Boulevard, and our phone number is 843-881-3644. Then we have our West Ashley store, which is 47 South Windermere Shopping Center. And their phone number is 843-573-3474. And they are behind the Staples off of Folly Road. I think not being street front, it's kind of hard. We still occasionally get folks say, "Oh, we never knew you were there." And we've been there for a long time. But it's behind the Earth Fair and Staples in South Windermere Shopping Center. But yeah, happy to help. I mean, literally, like, our videos are great online, but we love a one-on-one. Like, come in, let me show you how to do this. Let me show you how to rig a ballyhoo. Let me show you how to tie a bimini, whatever it is. We want to be the source of information for them to utilize. I don't want somebody to feel like they have to watch 20 YouTube videos on how to tie a knot or how to rig a ballyhoo, when I want everyone feeling comfortable enough to come in here and say, "Mike or Thomas or Chase, can you show me how to rig a ballyhoo?" 100% happy to do it.
And that's the beauty of it because you guys are out there actually doing this stuff that people can trust and rely on the information that they're getting from you, that it's true knowledge, it's legitimate, and it's proven to work in our area. And that's one of the things that you just don't get a lot of other places is like you guys literally see people day in and day out coming in there. You know what they're buying, you know where they're going, you know what they're catching. And being able to just give insight without necessarily blowing a spot out or something like that. Certainly, you might get lucky and get some numbers, but even if you don't and you find out what the fish are biting on, what color, and what general area, that's still a huge, huge leg up on just going out there and shooting in the dark for the most part.
Yeah, we're here to help. It's not about spots. It's not, we just want to be helpful, and we just that's one of the benefits of the job that I see is, getting a text back or getting an email, saying, "Hey, we caught this and this and this. Thanks for your help." And
Well,
that's
thank
that's the benefit of the job. That's the perks in it for me.
Well, thank you again, Mike, for coming on. This is Captain Mike Abel from Haddrell Point Tackle. We appreciate your time coming on and talking to us about the fisheries here. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. Thank you, Magic Tail Outfitters, for sponsoring the show. Next up, we have Captain Jimmy from Alaska coming on. He's going to be filmed on Wednesday or Thursday this week. We're excited to showcase that. I've fished with him everywhere across the United States in the last 15 years, and the guy's tremendous. And thank you for tuning in. This is Deepwater Legends Goin Deep Podcast. Thank you, Captain Mike. We appreciate it. We will see you at Haddrell's, our local tackle shop. We love going in there, and tight lines.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.